Welcome to Box Recaps. Today I'm going to explain the movie The Crimson Rivers, released in the year 2000. The movie starts and we see a dead body, and there is a shot of different parts of someone, the cut-off body parts. After that, Detective Superintendent Pierre Niemans, who happens to be a well-known Parisian police investigator, is sent to the small university town of Guerlain in the French Alps to investigate a brutal murder. The victim's body was found bound in a fetal position and suspended high on a cliff face, his eyes removed and his hands cut off. Pierre learns that the victim was a professor and the university's librarian, Rémi Calois, and he seeks out a local ophthalmologist for an explanation regarding the removal of the eyes. The local officer goes on to tell Pierre that the dean of the university filed the complaint about the missing professor almost a week ago. We go on to learn that the dean of the university happened to have a lot of authority in that town. He is not just a dean, he works like a mayor of the town. They then make their way to the college, and the forensic team goes on to tell Pierre that the victim was brutally tortured as his hands were cut off and his eyes were also missing. They say that when his eyes were taken out, he was still alive, adding that whomever tortured him, he knew what he was doing because both his hands have been cut off, but they've been cut off in a way that made sure he did not die. The killer just wanted him to feel the extreme pain. Pierre then makes his way to Dr. Bernard Chernez's cabin, where we see that he's really scared of dogs because the moment he sees it, he gets alert. Doctor goes on to tell the detective that Rémi used to come to him because of his ever-growing genetic disorder. The doctor also tells him that Rémi's father used to teach alongside him, but Bernard stopped teaching back in 1982. Bernard explains that the school's isolation led to inbreeding amongst the professors, with increasingly serious genetic disorders. Recently, the trend has reversed, with the local village children becoming ill and the college babies remaining healthy, something that the local villagers somehow blame on the unpopular and arrogant faculty members. Chernez hints that the killer is leaving Pierre clues to their motive by removing the body parts that are unique to each individual, the eyes and hands. Pierre questions the dean and examines the librarian's apartment, where he finds images of athletic supermen juxtaposed with texts on genetic deformities. The dean's assistant, who is also his son, named Hubert, translates the title of Calois's PhD thesis as, "We are the masters, we are the slaves. We are everywhere, we are nowhere. We control the Crimson Rivers." Pierre then goes on to question Fanny Ferreira, the woman who discovered the body of the victim up the hill. As the two talk, Pierre also goes on to learn that she's a glaciologist and a faculty child, who is immediately suspect because of her climbing ability and due to the fact that she's the fiancée of the dean's son, something that she denies. Despite being a faculty child herself, she lives outside the premises and shows contempt for the school and its arrogant professors. She works for the university to steer away frequent avalanches and is incensed when Pierre implies she might withhold evidence to protect the school. She tells him that anyone with good equipment could have hoisted the body up the cliff and brushes off his obvious attraction. Pierre then goes on to receive a call from the local investigator who tells him that he found acid rain in Rémi's eyes. This really shocked the detective, because he's aware that there has been no acid rain in this area since 1970. Pierre has now started to understand that these are serial killings. The scene then changes, and we go on to see that Detective Inspector Max is also in the nearby town of Sarzac, investigating the desecration of the grave of Judith Herault, a girl who died in 1982, and the theft of her photos from the local primary school. Another grave of yet another girl who died of pneumonia in the same year shows signs of an earlier desecration. He had gotten complaints that 2 graves had been dug in the graveyard, so he made his way to the town right away. Max makes his way to Judith's school, but he is not able to find anything useful there because the girl's photos have already been stolen because whoever this is, they're trying to get rid of all the evidence. We go on to learn that Judith Herault was killed in a horrific highway accident while traveling with her family, and her body only found months later. The mother was the only survivor and was so traumatized that years later she took a vow of darkness in a nunnery. Max then goes to see the girl's mother. The mother goes on to tell Max that when Judith was 10, she broke her wrist, and they went to get help at the faculty's hospital in Guerlain, where she was born. She claims they were attacked by demons on their way back, and when they fled, her husband and her daughter were killed in the road accident. She says the pictures were stolen to erase her daughter from history. and that her face is a threat to the demons who have returned to complete their mission. She tells him it all began in Guernsey. She also tells him that the accident was so horrible that it was really hard for them to recognize the girl's body. The mother is the only one to have survived among the family. Max then goes on to tell the mother that they have learned that someone is trying to do something to their daughter's body as her grave has been messed with. Judith's mother then goes on to tell Max that it seems like the same demons that killed her daughter are coming back, adding that Max's own life is in danger and that he should be careful out there. Pierre breaks into the dead librarian's office and finds details on the faculty history. He discovers that it was founded during the Second World War and financed with Nazi money. The original faculty staff were intellectuals who believed in creating a super race based not on physical criteria, but on intellectuality, and that was the real reason for their original inbreeding problems. Pierre and Fenny, on the other hand, make their way to the same mountain where Fenny had found the body. Pierre has taken Fenny with him because she happens to be a very good climber. When they are up there, Pierre goes on to follow a glacial melt tunnel to a cave that contains a second body frozen into the ice. Max, on the other hand, starts investigating different people around there. He makes his way to the tenants of the hotel. They at first do not tell him anything, but end up saying that they saw a white car going toward the cemetery, and it could be that person. Max then goes on to order his team to right away find this car. They go on to find this car in Guernsey that is registered on Philip's name. At that exact moment, Pierre also gets to know about Philip. It seems as if Max and Pierre are indirectly working on the same case, and all the things described so far are happening simultaneously. They're happening at the same time, but of course at different locations. Then we get to know about some shocking revelation. It is revealed that the body found in the ice up the glacier is none other than Philip's. He is also dead. It is revealed that Philip used to work in the maternity ward, and his sudden and unusual death comes as a shock to all the others. They have no idea how on earth are these weird deaths happening. Both Remy and Philip have been found dead on the glacier, and both of them are connected to Guernsey. Now Max makes his way to Philip's apartment, and when he is trying to open the lock of the door, we see that Pierre is already there. The moment Max comes in, Pierre goes on to grab him and pin him against the wall, thinking that it must be the killer, trying to get rid of some evidence. Max, however, tells him that he himself is an investigative officer and shows Pierre his badge. Both of them then go on to work together as they search the apartment. They go on to learn that Philip was into dog breeding and dog training. When Pierre sees a dog in the apartment, he again seems to be having fear in his eyes. When the forensic team works at Philip's body, they go on to see the same thing. Philip's hands have been cut off because this is the signature of the serial killer, but they see that his eyes have not been removed. The doctor out there then realizes that something does not feel right. He takes a close look at the eyes and realizes that these are fake eyes. He extracts those fake eyes and shows them to both detectives. It is now clear that both Philip and Remy have been killed by the same killer. Pierre and Max then go on to sneak into the library of the university to find more information about the university and the area around it. They go on to learn that this college was established during the World War. The college was funded by the Nazis, and that's how the inbreeding concept mystery is revealed, as they decided that they're going to breed in between them, and that is how a superior race will be born. However, it turned out to be a really bad idea, because their kids suffered the consequences of it. They had genetic disorders and were physically weak. Remy had the same issue. They then make their way to the doctor, Dr. Bernard, but they're shocked to see that he is already dead. He's been killed, and they go to the room where the killer has written, "I will trace the source of the Crimson Rivers," in Chernez's own blood above his body. When they get there, they hear someone running and get alerted. It seems as if the killer was about to cut off Bernard's hands and take out his eyes, but his plan got ruined when these two got there. They almost catch the killer, who fights off Pierre and races away after deliberately emptying Neiman's gun into the wall, but not hitting him. Max gives chase, but the killer escapes. Max tries his best to catch the killer, but it is freezing out there, and when he tries to take out his gun and shoot the killer, he's unable to do so because his hands start freezing right away. Max and Pierre, however, have got one thing now. They now have the fingerprints of the killer because the killer touched Pierre's gun. They try to match the fingerprints with many people, but are unable to find any luck. Max then goes on to tell him to try on with Judith's fingerprint, and it works. They're shocked to learn that Judith is the killer. Judith is still alive. The big problem now is that they had no idea what Judith looked like because all her photos were destroyed. Both of the officers then go on to share each other's findings, and it is decided that Max will try to learn the truth about Judith's death. He has to know whether she died or not. Pierre, however, goes on to say that he thinks all of this is connected to the university, so he's going to go there to fully investigate everything. Max right away goes back to search the grave in Sarczak. When he opens the coffin, he's not too surprised to learn that the coffin is empty except for a picture of an adult woman with Judith's name. On the other hand, Pierre goes to Fanny's home. Pierre tells her that although he sees her as physically capable of committing the crimes, he doesn't believe her to be guilty. When he returns to the university, the local police captain tells him that Remy's thesis is full of Nazi-style eugenics, suggesting perfection can be achieved by breeding athletically gifted and intellectually gifted children together. Max returns with the photo from the grave Pierre recognizes as Fanny, and on the way to her house, their cars hit from behind. It seems as if someone is trying to crush them. Max falls out of the car, and the other driver hits their car again, with Pierre still in it. Pierre, however, manages to shoot the driver down, and it turns out to be Dean's son. This is how they narrowly avoid being run off the road by the Dean's son, as they piece together the story. They now figure out that due to the poor bloodlines and genetic mutations in the faculty's inbred offspring, the doctors at the hospital had been swapping healthy village children with the university children, and Calwa arranged the matches between both types of children in the college's breeding program. Surtees, they deduce, must have swapped Fanny for one of the dead faculty babies while leaving her identical twin, Judith, with her birth family as a control subject. When Judith was brought to the hospital because of her broken wrist, her mother saw pictures of Fanny and realized that she was her stolen daughter. The family fled the hospital and were pursued by members of the faculty who caused the accident that killed the husband. The mother hid Judith and later on falsely identified the stolen body of the girl who died of pneumonia as her daughter's, keeping Judith inside their house at all times. As the mother slowly descended into madness and took refuge as a nun, Judith sought Fanny and told her the whole story. Fanny now hid Judith, who could go out pretending to be Fanny, and it was Judith who left her picture in her desecrated grave as a clue. When they're at Fanny's house, they find the missing hands and eyes of the victims in her basement. But Fanny is now gone, and so are her grenades. Pierre gives the order to evacuate the university, while he and Max travel up the mountain to find Fanny. The duo confront Fanny, only to be set upon by Judith, who is now as mad as their mother, and she is the one who committed the crimes. Judith tells Fanny to kill Pierre, but she refuses, and instead turns the gun on her sister. At the same time, Max fires at Judith, but hits Fanny in the shoulder, and the gunshot triggers an avalanche. Judith is swept away, and the rest are buried in the snow until a rescue team arrives with search dogs. Fanny is airlifted to hospital, while Max asks Pierre to explain his fear of dogs. And with that, the movie comes to an end. Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on the notification and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.